Friends, good evening to all of you. On behalf of Bharati Vidya Bhavan IKS Cell, my Retired Life Foundation, Higher Education Forum, and also on behalf of the SIS LLD, we extend a very hearty welcome to all of you for this our monthly session under IKS series. As you know, we started IKS series talks somewhere in the month of March 2025, and thereafter we have been arranging a session every month on an interesting topic for IKS. And this month we are going to have an exciting talk, and this talk is on a very, very important topic of Bhakti Chivari of the Abhangs, which is a very, very popular Maharashtrian devotional song devoted to Lord Vittal and also the Lord Vitova, alternatively known as. So this talk is going to be an extremely important part of the IKS journey because this is a very, very specialized, let me put it that, a very, very specialized field of the Indian school of thought. And to talk on this particular topic, we have with us an exciting person as well, Dr. Uh, Dr. Preeti Shirodkar. Dr. Preeti Shirodkar holds a degree in English literature from Bombay University. She holds a PhD degree from the Bombay University, and she has been an accomplished teacher in the research for last 3 decades. Currently, she is an associate professor with the Kohinoor Business School, but in India and abroad, she has been respected as a great teacher in the area of the English literature and the business communication. But this is completely separate because she has a tremendous amount of passion and love for the IKS, and therefore she's also an member of our IKS group, as many of you are. So she also a part of our IKS group, and she's passionate in discussing her thoughts as well as sharing her thoughts on this particular topic. So on behalf of all of you, I extend a very hearty welcome to Dr. Preeti Shirodkar and request her to take over the session. Madam, the floor is open to you.
Yeah. Thank you so much, Dr. Sengupta. And thank you to the IKS team for giving me this platform to share my thoughts. I will just share the sound because I have some music that I would be playing as well. Because no talk of Abhangs can be complete without listening to some of them. The topic of my talk for today is Bhakti Chivari, tracing the manifestations of faith. And I personally believe that the Abhang tradition of Maharashtra has over centuries, almost 7 centuries plus, it has kept alive uh, a great amount of love for faith in itself. And it is a tradition that is being very beautifully carried forward. So, of course, I'm going to refer to the Sant tradition, the Santa tradition from the 13th century onwards, but I'm also going to focus upon some modern day versions and modern day abhangs, and which have been equally powerful, equally carrying forward the tradition. And of course, all the singers that I'm going to play um, are all young singers, although they follow in the tradition of the great Bhimsen Joshi ji, who popularized the abhangs and brought them to the common person, right? So in the next about 40-45 minutes, I will take us through the journey, and then I will leave the floor open for discussions of anything that anybody might want to say, add, or even ask. So let me begin by talking about the Bhakti tradition in Maharashtra. And the Bhakti tradition is, of course, a devotional movement, but it is a devotional movement which is centered on love and surrender. A lot of um, traditions which are related to the bhakti, whether it is Sufi or even the bhakti movement, like I was just saying, are very, very powerfully related to a feeling of love. So, unlike religion, which many a times, religion and rituals, which many a times, unfortunately, instill a fear of God, the bhakti tradition and the abhangas that represent this bhakti tradition have always focused on love, and surrender to the divine power, uh, becoming one. Surrender, not in the sense giving up and throwing all responsibilities, but surrender as in complete acceptance. And I feel that most knowledge systems which talk about faith, or whether it is Zen, the Zen tradition, or any other tradition, nationally and internationally, traditions talk about surrender, about acceptance, about becoming one with the universe, which ultimately is what brings us complete peace, complete joy, and acceptance. And that is what I'm going to try and talk about in the next 40-45 minutes. So, if one closely observes the Bhakti tradition, it focuses on personal devotion. And yet, it is not something which is sheltered. It is, while it focuses on personal tradition and personal devotion, it speaks about community. It manifests in the form of community. It manifests in surrender and becoming one with everything and everyone around us, right? And what it emphasizes is a deep personal connection. A deep personal connection with a power. One might call it God, one might call it a divine force or whatever. But of course, in the Bhakti tradition, it takes the manifestation of Vitthal. And Vitthal, as we know as well, is a very humanized God. And I will go on to why in a little while about that. But I am sure most of us know the story and the tradition of Vitthal. But anyway, I'm still going to talk about it. So it talks about love, it talks about faith, and it talks about surrender. It totally rejects complex rituals. So many a times, complex rituals um, talk about the little things through which one can reach the divine, whereas the Bhakti tradition talks about just becoming one with the divine without any thing coming in between, any point of negotiation or any point of via media. So it says that there is really no need, or there is no value for performative rituals, which many a time dilute the personal devotion through a sort of given framework that is set through certain religious rituals and traditions. And they believe that this inner devotion, which tries to surrender itself to the larger force of universal force of life, and its manifestation here in the form of Vittal, is the path to salvation. And while I've always maintained, because I've also written on many of the leaders and leadership, um, it happens that we tend to only see everything as white or as black, and our leaders also as such. In the same way, people turn around, and where it comes to religion, faith, or whatever, there becomes a very divisive power that starts playing its forces through the tradition. But here, when we talk about bhakti, it talks about surrender to Vitthal, because all the songs and a lot of them are in praise of this image and this being of Vitthal from Pandharpur. What also makes the Bhakti tradition very interesting is that it uses the vernacular languages. Because, of course, Sanskrit, as we know, wasn't and still isn't available to everybody. And it becomes sometimes a very erudite exercise trying to decode and having a via media to take us on this journey towards the divine. Because it is like is said in the philosophical tradition that imitation of an imitation is twice removed from reality. And even today, many of the Sanskrit scriptures, many of the Vedas, many of the performative rituals are all interpreted via a medium in the form of priest or a guru or whatever else. And therefore there is a percolation, there is an interpretation, there is a via media, and therefore a one step of distance that comes in the way between the person himself or herself and the divine. And therefore, it is very interesting to see that the bhakti tradition falls, follows the vernacular languages, and a lot of Vithal songs, which I have personally heard, are in either English, here Marathi, sorry, or Kannada. And I don't speak any Kannada, but if one hears them, the very purity of the evocation helps you break the barrier of the language and sort of understand and reach out to the meaning that is, or the essence of the devotion that is being conveyed through it. And therefore, spirituality becomes more accessible because it does not now need an interpreter. It is in what in Marathi we call Boli Bhasha, or the colloquial spoken language of the people. There are really, if one listens to or follows the Abhangas, they are really very, 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 very simple to understand. And therefore, they really do not beg any interpretation. And ultimately, the bhakti tradition has always spoken about inclusivity. One of the thing is one of the most powerful bhajans which has always brought me to tears is Zohar My Bap, where Chokha Mera, who does not belong to the upper classes, goes and he claims in the Abhanga that he is a Mahar, that he is an untouchable, and he is going seeking alms. And through that, through that act of surrender, through that act of washing away of the ego, through that act of not feeling humiliated by his position, he is getting in touch with the higher power. So if one sees a lot of the abhangas, a lot of traditions, and I'm going to come to it, there are also a lot of women, um, santa from the Marathi Bhakti Abhanga tradition. So largely, if you see the Varkaris who have carried forward the tradition, and even today, we all know that come Ashadi Ekadashi, there are lakhs and lakhs of Varkaris who are walking hundreds and hundreds of kilometers to reach the door of Vithala, singing bhajans all through the journey. And where do they get the stamina? Where? And usually, of course, they still follow the tradition of the Bhakti Path. They just go, many of them barefoot or with minimal possessions, walking for miles together. And if one watches the energy and one looks at them, one realizes the sheer purity of the whole experience. So there is this sense of community and togetherness where people are just walking together, this whatever their position, whatever their economic condition, whatever anything else, it really does not matter at any point. And there is this entire sense of community which comes together with only one objective: to reach Pandharpur, and ironically get a darshan in a very different way. And we will talk about that different way as we go along. So, like I was saying earlier, there is an immense amount of simplicity. Simplicity in the way the tradition has been carried forward through the Varkaris, the way the tradition manifested itself in the Santavani, because the words are simple to understand, the emotion is very, very simple, and they just go many a times playing only a ektari and singing along the way, and or with a chipuri, a tal, and that is the only thing they carry, and they are merrily singing along with it. Right? So there is a huge amount of simplicity, right from the way they dress to the way they carry themselves over these many, many days towards the Wari and towards where they wish to get, which is at the feet of Vithoba. Of course, the entire Wari speaks about endurance. The entire Bhakti tradition speaks about endurance because it is not a one day affair, which many rituals can be. So it does not say that let us do this and this is where it ends. It is something which is a constant communication with the divine, like we communicate with our family in times of need, in times of joy, in times of pain, sharing all the joys and sorrows with the divine as if the person were a friend or a companion. And the Wari itself, the hundreds and thousands of miles of walking, talk about the endurance of these people who are so lost in the bhakti, feeling of bhakti, the experience of bhakti, that they do not even feel the length of this walk that they have done. And ultimately, there is a complete surrender. There isn't an ego. Like I said, everybody is together. People, unknown to each other, join the Wari, and they don't even know when they become a part of that. There is no structure, there is no organization. And when it reaches Pandharpur and there is a ringan and other things that they do to celebrate their bhakti, it is a sense of complete oneness, a complete unplanned ecstasy in the presence of the divine. So there is a lot of humility, because if you see the Varkaris, they are just wearing simple white clothes. The women are usually wearing simple 9 yard saris, a simple white topi, and all that they are carrying is a zhola or sometimes the shidori. And whatever it is, either if they are taking a tulsi plant or they're taking a palki or they are just walking by themselves. I'm sorry, I had to admit one of the person who was in the waiting room for a while, and so the PPT hangs at such times. So I'm just going to reshare and then continue. Yes. So, what do the Abhangas then signify? The Abhangas signify a devotional, poetic, and musical practice. It is poetic, but the reason I think that it has survived so many generations, and why people get so easily influenced by it and so easily drawn into it, is because of the music that goes along with it. The music also, like I said, is very simple. Even in today's time, the music is usually a tabla, mrudanga, sitar, a harmonium, and a few chipri, tal, and such other instruments. These instruments have been symbolic of devotion, have been symbolic of simplicity, have been symbolic of faith, have been symbolic of purity. And through this, the Marathi Bhakti movement has remained alive and is manifesting itself nowadays more and more assertively, because come Ashadi Ekadashi, there are almost 8 to 10 Abhanga programs, not only in Mumbai, but across Maharashtra and sometimes across the country as well, where there are pockets of Marathi speaking people. No, the focus, of course, is on the worship of Lord Vitthal from Pandharpur. And the story of Vitthal, just very, very briefly, is again a story of simplicity, that one of his devotees was a very, very ardent devotee, always hoping to meet Vitthal. Finally, Vitthal decided to come and meet him. And at that time, the devotee was serving his parents, or so the legend goes. And he, being poor, had hardly any place in his house. And when he saw Vitthal there, and he told Vitthal, take this brick and stand on it, because I first need to attend to my parents and then I will come and attend to you. And it is therefore believed that Vitthal, in order to balance himself, put his hand on his waist, Karakatavari Theoniya Hata, Vitthal Ubha Vitevari. That is the concept that is evoked. And I think even as I'm talking about it, it is giving me the goosebumps, because it talks about the simplicity of the divine and the simplicity of the devotee. So much so that there isn't any sort of fear or any sort of awe or any sort of distance between them. It is almost as if one would treat a good friend, that the devotees and the divine blend in that situation. And that is what Vitthal and Vithal's Abhangas have always represented. So these compositions advocate a direct connection with God, and they revolve around love and moral values, right? I'm not going to talk about the santas, because of course there is enough and more um, material available on the net. But we have Jnaneshwar, Muktabai, Nivruttinath, Zanabai, all from the 13th and 14th century, as also Tsokhamera, Namdev from the 14th century, Soirabai, Kanopatra, Puran Das, and Tukaram. These are some of the famous um, santas whose devotion or whose abhangas have lasted way beyond the 13th century into the 21st. Like I told you earlier, the tradition hasn't ended with the santas. This fascination for Vitthal, this devotion for Vitthal, and for the Abhanga Vani, as it is called, or the Abhanga tradition. Abhanga Vani, because it's a colloquial conversation with the divine. This is also seen in more recent poets or lyricists or writers or musicians, whatever you want to call them, right from G.B. Deval, who was in the 19th and 20th century, Gadi Madgulkar, who is, of course, a very famous literature from the Marathi tradition, and Sarang Kulkarni, a very young sarod player from the 21st century, who has again written a very, very uh, evocative and a very, very engrossing Pandurang Abhanga. So let us talk about this Wari, and essentially, for me and from my reading, how this Wari unfolds and what we can take away from it. I think, as simple people caught in everyday living and uh, the sort of everything that goes with the living every day, we associate things with form. In the sense, we believe what we see, we believe what we hear, so we more consciously rely on our senses. And if you see, therefore, there is an association with the form, and this association with the form in Vitthal bhajans, Vitthal Abhangas, have taken the form of a praise for the form, a description of the form in great detail. So if there are many, 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 many Abhangas which are devoted only to describing Vitthal, about describing what he's wearing in his ears, about his looks, about the color of his skin, about how he has put his hands on his waist and is standing there patiently, about how he looks, about how he exudes a lot of power and a lot of spirituality. So it is all this association with form which helps create an identity. Because, like I said, we are somehow more easily taken in, or more easily able to accept what we can see. And therefore, the form of Vitthal, the way Vitthal appears, and what that appearance signifies is what really a lot of Abhangas speak about. And that for me is the first point of association that we see in the Varkari tradition and we see in the Abhanga tradition. Moving on from there, once this form has been associated with, once this person has been observed for the way he looks, for who he is, for what he is doing, then the Vitthal legend goes on to the connection with him as a family, a friend, complaining to him, arguing with him, telling him a lot of things from their life, both pleasures and pain, and having a almost conversation with the way that one would speak to a friend or a family member. So again, that great aura, that great distance that very often one feels with the divine. Okay, it's something aspirational. That aspirational comes down from the surreal to the real, and there is a connection drawn with Vitthal as a family and or a friend. And this again, there are a lot of bhajans devoted to it. Then the journey goes on in the tradition to talking about a distancing from worldliness, because ultimately the form, or any form including our body, is a manifestation, and it comes from somewhere and it dissolves in something. And this is again a thought which is there in almost all knowledge systems, including all aspects of the Indian knowledge system, that we come from a form and we go back to a form. And this journey in between is again associated with a form. So the easier way to renounce is to give away the constriction that one feels or associates with the body. Because with the body comes the attachments to relations, to people, to places, to things. And according to a lot of bhakti, that is what brings us pain. It is not the experiences, it is not the events, it is not the situations, but it is what we attach to them that brings us pain. That is also what yoga tells us. And so it talks about distancing from this worldliness, so that ultimately one reaches a stage of spiritualism or detachment, which is the manifestation of the oneness with the divine. So I will talk about this journey of the four stages. The first stage, as I said, is the association with the form. And I'm going to play one of the songs. I will first talk about its meaning. The song is Pandharpuricha Nira. Like I said, I'm playing the music of people who are the younger singers who are singing these bhakti abhangas, and they are sort of keeping alive the tradition. So Pandharpuricha Nira talks about the mesmerizing nature of Vitthal, right? When you see him, and when you see him, you get so enchanted by him, and you get so much apart. You feel so close to him. You get so involved with him, with his mesmerizing form, that You start wanting to seek, wanting to give up everything and seek solace, seek comfort, like a child seeks comfort in its mother's uh, arms at any age, at any stage. In the same way, it is this feeling of seeking comfort at the feet of Vitthal. And interestingly, this form of Vitthal has also been given the upama, the uh, manifestation as a woman. Okay, and I will talk about that. So it is not a root, it is not a manifestation which is gender specific. It is Vitthal is a father, is a mother, is a friend, is everybody you need. Okay, and of course there are many songs, many abhangas. Kaya hi pandhari atma ha Vitthal by Santa Eknath. माझे माहेर पंढरी पाहे भीवर येत्या तिरी by Santa Eknath, again, which Bhimsen Joshi has popularized immensely. Pandhari Nivasa Sakha Panduranga, which again talks about the form and also about him as a friend, because he's a Sakha Panduranga, right? He is not the unreachable divine, the fearful divine. He is a friend. Then Savale Sundara Rupa Manohara, राहो निरंतर हृदय माझे बाय तुकाराम. सुंदर ते ध्यान उभे विटेवरी करकटावरी ठेवोनिया. So that again by Sant Tukaram. And Rajasa Sukumar Madanacha Putala. Out of this, I'm going to play for you Pandharpurisa Nira, and I've just, for those who don't understand Marathi, told you its meaning.
पंढरपुरीचा निळा, पंढरपुरीचा निळा, पंढरपुरीचा निळा, लावण्याचा पुतळा, लावण्याचा पुतळा. ओ विठो देखिएला डोळा, विठो देखिएला डोळा, विठो देखिएला डोळा. बाई वो बाई वो, बाई वो बाई ये वो, पंढरपुरीचा निळा, पंढरपुरीचा निळा, पंढरपुरीचा निळा.
So that was Pandharpurisa Nira. After this surrender to the form and connection that has been established with the form, or seeing Vithoba within in your eyes, even if you close your eyes, not having to really go up to him, then one starts like one expresses one's expectations, desires, anguish, anger, frustrations to one's friend, beloved, or somebody you trust. In the same way, the Santavani takes us to a place where there are a whole lot of emotions, a whole lot of desires, a whole lot of requests that pour forth, right? In that is Aga Vaikunthi Charaya. Then one which I referred to earlier, Zohar Baibak, where you turn around and he's Sokha Mera says, I'm a Mahar, but I want arms from you. Kanoba tuji ghongadi changali re. So asking Vithoba why he has trusted people with his ghongri, something he covers. He's like a shepherd, a simple person, and why he does not mind even if people are trying to corrupt it in their own ways by misusing it and overusing it and abusing it. Lakshmi Baramma, calling Lakshmi. This is a Purandara Dasa bhajan um, in Kannada, which again, like I said, I don't understand Kannada, but it's very, very evocative. Lakshmi Vallabha, um, again, calling the divine to come and help you, as you may call your mother, father, neighbor to come and help you in times of need. Most importantly, Dhava Ghali, which I find very, very interesting because, like I said, it talks to Vitthal as if Vitthal is a mother, right? And the one I'm going to play is something again which is very close to my heart. It is Pota Purta Dei Vithala, where uh, the Abhang in the Abhang Santa Tukaram requests Vitthal for the minimum which one needs to survive. And he says that one can get pure joy and satisfaction by even having the minimum. One doesn't need more than the minimum to really feel a sense of satisfaction. And this can help you break away from the rat race that defines life, because we are constantly chasing goals, dreams, hopes, destinations, and it's a never ending hunger. So he just asks for enough to survive with, and let us listen to that. So that was Jaitil Meundi again invoking Vitthal through a Tukaram Abhanga, saying whether the bhakri is shiri or taji, it really does not matter. It's just great enough if one has enough to feed oneself when one is hungry. And that very ardently reminds you about the futility of the rat race, where one has now moved one step deeper towards spirituality, one step closer towards detachment, right? Then, of course, there is a distancing from worldliness where one does not even want anything. One is just happy soaking in the power of the divine and whatever it has to offer. So, from asking it for certain things, uh, expressing one's hopes and expectations, there is a movement now to an acceptance of whatever the divine has to offer, because there is a faith that it will be in the best interest of oneself. So there are various bhajan, I mean abhangas like Abhira Gulala Udhari Taranga Natha Gari Nache Mazar Sakha Panduranga, and it goes on to describing the sheer frenzied divinity that one experiences when one surrenders oneself to the divine and to the moment and to the experience. Panduranga Rangatuni, that is that is by Sarang Kulkarni, who I said is a modern Vadak, and that is again a very powerful abhanga that he has come up with. Namacha Gajara Garze Bhima Tira, so that Gajar, that singing the name, chanting itself brings satisfaction. One now doesn't even need the Taji or Shiri Bhakar because one is so immersed in the moment, in what it has to offer, that nothing else seems to really be of consequence. It is almost as if one is captured, like a ghost may pounce upon one. One is captured by the divine, as Pandariche Bhuta Mothe says. And then everything becomes like Vitthal. So Tirtha Viththala, Kshetra Viththala. But the one I'm going to play is Chinmaya Sakala Hridaya, where this Abhanga this Abhanga evokes the supreme universal consciousness. It says that it penetrates in every single heart. And if one finds this spiritual connection and divinity, one then realizes that it exists everywhere, and one is therefore happy, at peace, in a moment of surrender, where one feels a sense of oneness with the divine and one does not really want anything else. So let us listen to Chinmaya Sakala Hridaya. Starting with the bhajan.
चिन्मया सकल हृदया चिन्मया सकल हृदया सदया दया गोविन्दा सदया दया गोविन्दा वर वरदा कलिमल विलया वर वरदा कलिमल विलया चिन्मया सकल हृदया चिन्मया सकल हृदया सकल हृदया सकल हृदया सकल हृदया सकल हृदया चिन्मया सकल हृदया.
And when one is filled with the sense of divinity, that is when one can attain detachment, right? Because then what one is attached to, which is worldly, which is what brings you desires, pain, and whatever else, one might still be in the midst of it. One doesn't need to renounce it, but one is detached enough for it to see it as external, as temporary, and something which is not really the aim and goal of one's existence. So when that realization happens, then one realizes that Hari Bhajana Veena Kala Ghalavuna Kotre. And let us not, the typical image of Indian philosophy, which says, Dori cha sapa bhyuni bhaya. So don't get scared of imaginary snakes. Don't get scared of, don't confuse the manifestation for the real, because this is all temporary, right? It also talks about how life grows and goes back to itself through abhangas like Adi Bija Ekale. Yeah, and then from that beach, how things keep growing. Ama Nakare Jnana, because one is still a little too naive, a little too simple, and one can stray away from the path of divinity very easily. Kannada Raja Pandarica, for a person who does everything, works as a shepherd for somebody, has lunch with somebody is there everywhere. So you really don't need to go seeking him. One can see him everywhere around in whatever one is doing in life. So there is no reason to separately seek the divine. And then Anuraniya Thokada Vithu Akasha Evada. So ultimately the manifestation becomes the universe, and then all form cease, akara, ukara, makara, and then at the end, Augharanga Ekazala, which is a very, very powerful Tsokhabai Abhanga, which talks about the metaphor of colors blending into one, right? And it talks about how, like the colors blend into one, we need to blend with the divine by giving up ourself, our ego, and the boundaries that come with our ego and ourself. And if one does that, then one gets freed from anger and desire, which are the two things that hold one back and cause a lot of grief. And then the state that one experiences is the state of oneness with everything and a state of pure bliss. So let us quickly listen to Augharanga Ekasala.
घारंग एक झाला रंगी रंगला श्रीरंग अवघा रंग एक झाला अवघा रंग एक झाला रंगी रंगला श्रीरंग रंगी रंगला
So, to conclude, I would say that the bhakti path, the path of bhakti, the path of the abhangas that have been symbolic of the bhakti tradition and its manifestation in Maharashtra, it is a journey from the saguna to the nirguna. The saguna, which is manifested in the form, which one can begin by relating to, because that is what is easiest to accept and believe. And it goes to the nirguna. So much so that, like I was saying at the beginning, most of the times the Varkaris do not even enter the Gabara. They don't even enter the temple. They just do the Ringan and they are satisfied with just that journey and that connection with the divine, and they just turn back the way they had gone. So one really does not even feel the need anymore to meet the form in person, because you see the form in everyone and everywhere, and that sheer energy is good enough to give you that sense of peace and belonging. It also takes you a realization of the philosophy of Aham Brahmasmi. that you are a part of the Brahman, you are a part of the universe. You have come from it, you're going to go back with it, and you carry in yourself the divine spark. And personally, Preeti and me, we have been a part of the Abhanga journey since our childhood. We've been listening to it. My parents were very fond of music. And now, since the last 15, 20 years, when Pancham Nishad has been holding an annual Abhangavari, we go and attend it. And believe me, you get the same feeling as if you are in Pandharpur. The divine energy of the hall in which the performance of those Abhangas has taken place transports you to another level and gets you the feeling of humility and oneness with things around you. And so it is something which has a continued relevance, right? It shows you the values of acceptance, inclusivity, and interdependence, because ultimately we are all together and a part of the divine energy. It might be manifested in different ways, but beyond that it does not matter. So it is this inclusivity which is seen by the different voices, the male voice and the female voice, the Sant Tukaram on the one hand and Sokha Mera on the other. So you have a wide range of people, of santas, who are emblematic of this tradition. And therefore, the voice is a voice of inclusivity and interdependence, and not something which is caught in any moment of either time or belief or ritual. Um, with that, I would like to conclude what I wanted to say about the Bhakti tradition and the fact that this experience from the Saguna to Nirguna, I think my brother and I, um, we are fairly agnostic, but having said that, we have personally experienced the power of this interdependence, this oneness. It ultimately shakes you and moves you, and that energy brings tears to your eyes in a realization of ultimately that you are nothing but a part of the larger divine cosmos connection. And that is something, I think, which is something which the Indian knowledge system repeats, that we are ultimately part of one divine, and ultimately everything is one, right? It is just manifested in different forms. And it is the same thing that the Bhakti tradition tells us through music and through song. So thank you very much for a patient listening. And I really hope I've been able to do justice to the topic and convey some of the experience of divine that I have personally felt every time I have been exposed to the Abhanga tradition. So thank you very much. I would be happy to take any questions or hear your comments and feedback.
Good evening, ma'am. This is Damayanti, and it was a wonderful, wonderful talk. And I felt, yes, but is it really necessary? Do we need to detach ourselves completely to be able to move closer to the divine?
See, detach yourself completely in the sense, you don't need to physically detach yourself. So, like most of these santas also were people who were living, they hadn't renounced. You detachment and renunciation are two different things. But if you are involved in the sense, um, oh my God, I mean, let us take a simple example, okay? Um, if one doesn't find something that belongs to one, okay, maybe it is, or let us say the dhobi lands up burning the sari, there is a lot of heartburn which goes because one feels, oh, I had got it for this occasion. It had been given to me by this one. This person had, or I had invested so much in it. And that sense of attachment is what brings the pain. I mean, I practice yoga, and my yoga teacher also always tells us the same thing, that it is not the thoughts which are a problem. It is the attachment of meaning to those thoughts which create a problem. So the problem is not me thinking that I have to make breakfast. The problem is me thinking, oh God, I have to make it before 7:30. If I don't make it, I'm going to miss my bus, or I'm going to get late to work, and this, that, and then my stress builds up. So it is usually attachment which builds stress. I mean, the entire sense of my child, I did this much for my child, and my child behaved like that with me. This is what I did for my spouse, and my spouse is so ungrateful. All these statements, all these frustrations, all these pain points, they come from a sense of attachment. If one is able to just see the person as a person, um, then uh, that pain that goes with the attachment does not come. Okay, I mean, I always remember, I feel very fortunate to have been brought up by parents who never made a noise about it, but who understood the essence of this. So I was always told growing up that you do what you want. If you succeed, good enough. If you fail, don't worry, we are there to hold you, no judgment. And that gave me the freedom to grow. Today, what I feel I have reached, even if it is a small point, it is because of that freedom to grow. But we are constantly telling our child, don't do this, this might happen, don't do that, I don't expect you to do like this, that. So it is this attachment that is causing us pain. It is causing the other person pain as well, because we are restricting and closeting them. And
Yeah.
I think it also makes the journey into the other world difficult, right? Because I have seen many people I love very dearly um, pass away, and they have passed away in just an instant. And one of them, being my mother, her caregiver told us this, that I have seen people's pran get stuck. But this is one woman who was there a moment and not there the next. So
Yeah.
I feel that being a part of the world, so till the last breath, my mother was a part of the world. She would give you whatever support you needed, whatever help she could. She would do everything for you, but there was no strings attached. And that is what detachment speaks, I mean, refers to. It is
Right.
not renunciation.
Yeah, right.
It's
And
karmanyevadikaraste,
yeah,
right?
one more thing I find is the people who are supposed to be extremely religious minded and understand this divinity, they get absolutely, I mean, they get disturbed when dealing with the other human beings. They themselves had reached a certain level of spirituality, but cannot tolerate the other people, they would get angry. This kind of a contradiction. See, when we say we are spiritual and we have gained some amount of closeness to the divinity, are we not supposed to be very, very calm, quiet, serene, and understand, as you said in your speech, that it is like Tattvamasi? Is it that is the one you quoted, Tattvamasi, or Aham Brahma?
Aham Brahmasmi
Even
is
Aham
what.
Brahmasmi. See, when we are able to reach that level of understanding Aham Brahmasmi, then everybody is we see God, or whatever that pran, or in every not only in human beings but also in animals, dogs, cats. We feel touched when a dog is suffering, right? So that way, but there are people who attain this kind of a lot of spirituality, but still they are not able to tolerate others. which I see mostly in today's society?
Um, I mean, I think it's just whom we come across in life, right? I have seen people who have been able to maintain it. I've seen people who have slipped, but who have come back. So I think I mean, rather than this is my feeling, rather than worrying or judging anybody else's spiritual journey or otherwise, I think if I can take a step closer to it every single day, or whenever I slip, because ultimately I'm human and I have my limitations, when I slip, if I realize and I take one step back, then maybe 2 years, 5 years, 10 years down the line, it will still take me one step closer. And I think that ultimately, when one takes one's final breath, one will have a sense of peace. Um, that is my perception and my feeling. Yes, Anupama, I can see you have raised your hand.
Yes, good evening. It was an amazing session. And I had this question which keeps popping up in my head every now and then, that there is a fear. There's some sort of fear that in case I get too spiritual and I get detached, will I be interested in the worldly matters? Will I still care for my children, my family? And because when we are living in this real world, we need to earn a living. Money is a tool. We need money to have a comfortable life. So, will I want to give up on all of that if I get too spiritual? So, that's one question that I ask myself.
Yeah, no. So, yes, Prakash, I'll come to you in a moment. See, Anupama, what I again feel is that there is a difference between renunciation and detachment. And I don't think one needs to renounce. One doesn't have to become a sannyasi. One doesn't have to give up money. One doesn't have to give up wearing decent clothes. One doesn't have to give up eating good food, or one doesn't. But if one day, instead of getting pizza, which one was expecting for dinner, if somebody is too tired and they say, I've just put khichdi, so please have it, then if we are still able to eat it with joy and say, okay, it's a meal after all, then I think it makes a lot of difference. That is detachment. Again, in this context, I will give you the example of my father. My father used to not even like the smell of garlic. Okay. And of course, the family, knowing that, would avoid giving him anything with garlic. But, and raw onion. These were two things which were his major aversion points. But when he went out, I have seen him eating raw onion, bhakri, and garlic chutney, because he said that person has given it to me with love. And if I create a fuss and say I don't eat this, at that time, what is that person going to do? This is detachment. This is acceptance. So, detachment does not mean I don't need to wear good clothes, but if I'm wearing the good clothes and suppose it tears, then my mind is not fixated with it. Oh my God, I wore it only once. It's torn now. What do I do? Or whatever else, right? It can also matter in whether you're buying a 5,000 sari or a 45,000 sari, which you're going to wear only once. I think these are the small things in which one can really show the detachment that one needs to. It is not that one doesn't need to buy clothes, but how much? There is this beautiful story by, I think, Tolstoy. How much land does a man require, right? Where a man is told that how much ever land you cover from sunrise to sunset will become yours. And he keeps looking for more and keeps looking for more and keeps looking for more. And ultimately, by the time he reaches, he's been told that how much ever land you cover from sunrise to sunset, you will get. But you have to come back to the same point. And when he reaches that point again, in his greed, he is, he drops dead, and all the land he requires is 6 feet for his burial. I think that story tells us a lot. How much is enough? Where do we draw the line? Where do we stop creating the fuss that we need to create in our daily lives? I mean, so what if your daughter or your son wants to marry somebody of his choice? I have brought you up. I want you to marry whom I choose for you. I want you to do engineering because I think it is the right choice for you. That poor child is begging to do humanities. No, 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 no. Humanities won't give you a living. And one is saying, one is, it is in the best interest of that person. And then that person at 40 goes and changes his or her life. Then my point is, that is the attachment I'm talking about. So I'm not saying you need to renounce anything, but don't make your life so full of it that it becomes a chain, that if you don't have it, you get really disturbed. I mean, if my child doesn't call me, what were you so busy with that you couldn't call me? You don't love me anymore. No, the child might just be preoccupied. It's simply these little letting goes, which that is why I say that the Abhangavani is very practicable. It doesn't talk about anything high. It doesn't talk about anything major. Live where you are, do what you do. Vitthal is also there standing for you. Karakatavari Theonia Hata very patiently. And he'll be there till the end of the time. Only thing is, don't get so involved in things that it causes you trauma. Fair enough. I feel still if you cause yourself trauma, it is your stupidity, but you're causing others trauma with it as well, which is unfair, right? I think somebody else had raised their hand. Possibly it was somebody called Padmakar or somebody, but I'm not sure who it was.
No, I am Prakash here, but
Yeah,
I don't know.
Prakash.
I need to take permission from the Dr. Sengupta because we have crossed the time. If time permits, actually, I can ask a small question.
Please go ahead. Please go ahead.
Yeah. So I'll refer to Adi Shankaracharya. He tells from Mumukhatam, you need Sadhana Chatushtaya. And in Sadhana Chatushtaya, he talks first you should have Vivek and Vairagya. So Vairagya is the detachment you are referring to. So
Right.
only when you get these steps, then you can go for the path of Mumukhatam. But what I gathered from you that first you have to get detachment after surrender. Is there a convergence in the thought or I am getting confused? Can you please clarify?
Yeah. So, no. So, once you have a sense of detachment from the worldly things, then complete surrender is possible. Because when you're still attached, I'm giving with one hand and taking from the other. I will give you a simple example of this. When a beggar um looks skeptically at what you have given it, okay, or when your domestic help misbehaves with you, the first reaction is, I do so much and this person has behaved like this with me. So my point is, till you detach yourself from anything or anyone, till you let go of the worldliness, till then you will not be able to feel oneness with the divine, because you are still drawing those walls. My house, my table, my chair, don't spoil it, don't rock it, don't sit on it like this. So you're so attached to it. Where are you seeing the divinity in another being or in the universe around you? So till you are detached, till you give up your sense of worldly attachments, once you've given that up, then your eyes are open enough, or your heart is open enough, or your mind is open enough to feel the divine in the other, right? I mean, in the Indian tradition, I lost my brother recently, about 4 5 months ago. He used to always tease me that I have a very selfish habit, which is that when I meet my elders, whoever they are. They may be family, friends, even people I know professionally. I touch their feet when I leave. Okay. It is a very selfish feeling because I feel good when I touch their feet. I mean, I feel a sense of blessing. I feel a sense I have touched the divine in them, right? But the point remains our customs, our traditions push us to that. But we don't look at it that way. I mean, the very fact when we touch our anybody's feet, we are touching their energy points. They are touching our head. They are transferring their energy points. But we don't look at it like that. We look at it as,
Yeah.
you know, मैं नमस्कार कर रहा हूं, ऐसे ऐसे क्या भाग गए. Oh, so
Yeah.
the point remains that even rituals, habits, whatever we want to call it, you know, the traditions that are a part of the Indian lived experience have a lot of respect for the divine. But somehow, unfortunately, I think it has got now restricted to money making religious ritualism. I mean, people may not appreciate me saying that, but that is what it unfortunately has become, right? And I think if till one renounces, or not renounces, sorry, detaches oneself from all that one really gets attached to, one will not let go of the worldliness. Until one doesn't get go of the worldliness, one will not reach the divine. I mean, my brother, who was perfectly hale and hearty, just had diabetes. He suddenly passed away in May. Uh, and like I told you, he and I are both agnostics. Okay. Uh, all he used to say throughout his last 10 years, he passed away before he turned 70. The two things he used to say in the last 10 years is one, I want to die working, and two, I want to die before 70. And it was literally as if he manifested it. So somewhere one experiences the divine if one has the eyes to see it. Otherwise, one is just going to look upon it as, oh my God, he died. So, in fact, my niece told me, Preeti, Maushi, you haven't cried. Don't pent up the grief. I said, no, I don't feel the grief. I feel I feel a loss, but I don't feel the grief. I feel he is happy where he is. And yes, he will live in my memory till I am around or my memory is with me, right? So these feelings of attachment, then the grief, then, oh my God, then this, then that, those I think slowly start dissolving. It's a very long journey, it's a very arduous journey. But every time I get upset and I get angry, I at least realize it and I go and say, I'm sorry to that person, right? And I say it from my heart. I mean, today, yesterday my son told me, he said, that day somebody greeted you and you didn't even greet that person. Today I went up to that person's desk and I said, I'm sorry, I didn't hear you. This feeling, I think, is what matters. You can't be perfect because ultimately you're human. So you slip. But at least when you slip, you realize you're slipping and you hold yourself together and take that one step away uh, from what is keeping you away from the divine. That is what I hope
Thank,
clarifies what I was saying.
thank you. I got the answer. Yes, detachment is a must first. Yeah, thank you.
Can
Very
I
well.
add
Thank you.
one sentence? Can I just say a little
I
bit?
think that with that, we are just very
Sir,
much behind.
or I just
I
want
think
to
with
say
that,
one
we come
sentence.
to the end of this particular session. And I thank on behalf of all of us, we thank Dr. Preeti very much for being with us and sharing his deep insight into the subject of the Abhang, and a part of the very strong, I don't call religious, but a very called a bhakti bhakti path, let's say, bhakti path of the getting the salvation. So thank you very much, and thanks everybody for being with us
Thanks
today.
a
Good
lot.
night.
Thank
Goodbye.
you and good night.
Thank you, madam.
Thank you. It's been a
Thank
pleasure.
you, madam.
Thank
Thank
you.
Very nice
Thank you very
session.
much.
Thank you, madam.
Thank you,
Thank you.
madam. It was very nice
Thank you.
topic to
Thank you.